Hi guys, this is Taylor and I'm here today to do the time and place tag. I love this tag so much. It was created by Jen Campbell. I'll link the original video down below. And basically all you do is you pick a couple books that you have really strong memories associated with, to the point where you can recall the time and place you read them in. And you basically talk about the memories associated with those books. As much as I love this tag, I was a little bit hesitant to do it at first. Until I saw Mercedes do it a while back, because she brought up a lot of the same things I was concerned about. She said she really doesn't go on vacation, or she doesn't have these big adventures associated with her reading. But she made the loveliest tag video. I'll link it down below, and it kind of quelled any fears that I had about doing this tag. So I might as well go ahead and start at the place that it always starts, Harry Potter. The reason I started reading Harry Potter in the first place is because a lot of my family is really heavily into Harry Potter. I was a little bit late getting into it. I think the first one I ever had to wait for was Half-Blood Prince, but my family was super into it. I distinctly remember seeing the 5th book being carried around. So, it's a really big book, and I distinctly remember thinking, I don't think I could do that. So I had kind of already made up my mind about Harry Potter, and then one night I was just having a sleepover at my aunt's house, and I was sleeping in her guest room, and she just had this lone copy of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone sitting on the nightstand. And I was like, well, I don't really have much else to do. I'm just gonna go to bed anyway. It wouldn't hurt to read the first chapter. And then of course, it's all downhill from there. So especially when I think about the Sorcerer's Stone, I just think about reading it at my aunt's house for the first time. Next, I have to talk about Sailor Moon, specifically the first issue I ever got. So for a few years when I was growing up and really little, I would watch the Sailor Moon anime with my cousin, who was really heavily into anime and manga. I believe it was for my 5th birthday that she gave me this copy of the first issue of the manga. And I remember being at my birthday party at the table and receiving this and just immediately starting it. Like, sitting at the table, cracking it open, and being totally engrossed in it. And my mom and everybody was like, Taylor, you have more presents to open, but I did not care. And as you can see, this copy is so beat up from all the times that I read it after that. But I always think about, opening this at the table and just starting it right there and then. Next, I want to talk about Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut. So what happened with me and Vonnegut was I basically started reading him way too early, for me at least. I became sort of interested actually after he passed away in 2007, and I kind of looked him up and did some research and thought, that looks like a guy that I could be interested in eventually. But then, being a really pretentious middle schooler, I just decided to start him anyway. And I was reading this in class, very just out in the open, right out on my desk, and I distinctly remember turning to this page and thinking, oh, we're not going to read this in class anymore. But yeah, I always associate this with late middle school, early high school, and not being scarred, but it's Vonnegut. Next, I want to talk about Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. I believe I read this my senior year of high school, and I think the deal was, senior year I had a bunch of study halls because all of my course requirements were almost filled, so I spent a lot of my spare time getting a library pass and just going into the library and reading. And my high school library had this huge skylight right over the middle of where all the desks and computers and carrels were. I remember this one particular day, it was raining, and just sitting right under that skylight, reading as the rain came down directly above me, and kind of this melancholy feeling of it being senior year, and knowing that I was probably never going to be there in that situation ever again. So yeah, kind of sad, but I always associate Brave New World with that. Just reading under that big skylight. Next, I want to talk about Snowflower and the Secret Fan. I read this while I had a little caretaking job. I was basically caretaking for 2 older women with Alzheimer's, so there would be a lot of downtime when they were both sleeping, and I didn't have anything else to do, but I was still required to be there, so I would bring a book for those times. And I should start by saying that this book has an incredibly special place in my heart. The central relationship is such an important one to me, and it covers an aspect of relationships that's not addressed in a lot of books. But anyway, I read the ending of this book while I was at that job, and they were both sleeping, and I just distinctly remember, please don't let them wake up, so I have to explain why I'm crying. So this book ruined me, and I read it on the job, and yeah. Next, I just want to talk about the City of Ember, which I read as a middle schooler and adored. Around the time I read this, I was spending a lot of summers with my grandma, and we had like oddly similar reading tastes at the time, so whenever I would finish something that I thought she would like, I would just give it right to her, and we would often just read simultaneously. And I'm pretty sure there was a point where I had just given her City of Ember, and I was reading People of Sparks, the sequel. So we spent a lot of summer afternoons together just reading silently in the same room. We have very similar sensibilities in that way. So yeah, especially the first two I associate with reading with my grandma. The next one I want to talk about is Fate's Worse Than Death, also by Kurt Vonnegut. And I remember reading this when I was visiting my friend at their college, which I would later transfer to. But yeah, I was visiting them and I had decided to stay the night. And that night we tried to share one of the little rinky-dinky twin beds that they give you at most colleges, and it resulted in, still to this day, the worst night's sleep of my life. I woke up at, I think, 6 a.m. with incredible leg cramps, and I just, to the point where it was just better to get out of bed and sit on the floor. So I got out of bed, I knew I wasn't gonna get any more sleep, and I just went over and sat by the window, and I just got this out and started reading it, and I have such a fond memory of reading this, just looking out over the quad. There was a little gazebo where people were, and there was a big swing in the middle of the quad, and even though it was 6 a.m., of course, there was someone on the swing, and I just remember reading this and looking out and thinking, I could go to school here. And I eventually did. I transferred there. So yeah, that's what I think about when I think about this one. And my last book is kind of cheating because it's not really a memory associated with reading it so much as how it was acquired. Well, who cares? So the town I live in now was founded around these big factories, and a lot of the houses in this town were specifically made for workers in the factories, and some of the houses in this town were made for the owners of the company. So there's this section of town that there's just these big mansions. They're really out of place in this town, and they have this big legacy for housing the original owners of the factories. There was one summer, not this past summer, but the one before, that we discovered that there was an estate sale at one of those big kind of infamous mansions, and of course we had to go. If you've never been to an estate sale, it's basically like a tag sale or a yard sale, except you get to go into the house and things are organized. It's not like you just pick through their stuff, but you really get to kind of experience the house itself more so than just, you know, a yard sale where someone's selling their stuff in their yard. So we ended up going to this estate sale at this huge, beautiful mansion, and most of the stuff was, you know, organized in boxes or on tables. And then there was this one beautiful bedroom that was kind of used as the summer bedroom. It had huge windows and it's very light and airy, and it kind of had like a domed ceiling. It was beautiful. And they weren't really selling anything in that room besides the bed and the dresser. And really the only thing in this room besides the furniture they were selling, just on the floor, was a copy of The Great Gatsby. And I actually hadn't read The Great Gatsby at that point, and I was kind of just waiting for a really cheap copy to come into my life. So I went and I asked the person, hey, this is just like on the floor, are you willing to sell this? And she was like, yeah, whatever. So I ended up getting it for, I think, $0.25 or something. And upon getting it home and looking at it, I realized that it was annotated by someone named Brittany, who, judging by the annotations, I think is probably around 13. And she wrote lots of stuff like, so boring. She wrote like her crush's name, and my favorite one right here, which is poor rich boy, which is exactly how I felt through reading most of this. So I love this copy. It has so many good memories associated with it, and I actually loved reading it with the little annotations inside. So that was my time and place tag. If you want to do this tag, please consider yourself tagged. I always love to see videos of this tag, so if you're gonna do it, please let me know down below so I can go and watch it I will love it. But yeah, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Bye!